Greetings from New Zealand. This is my contribution to the celebration of Colin's life. I'll tell you briefly how we palled up in the first place and then share with you some reminiscences of our time together in the early days of Cornwall's biggest little band, Square Root. So let's get the row on the showed and let the good times roll. Now I can't remember whether it was 1974 or 75 when Colin started at what was then the Treswithian Secondary Modern School, and to be honest I didn't take to him at first. Went into the staff room and there he was, in my opinion, trying too hard to fit in, you know, talking to everybody, too big for his boots in a way, or is that too big for his clogs? Now in those days the aspiring young teacher was wearing a check jacket with very wide lapels, and Colin had one of the worst examples of them I've ever seen. Now in 1976 I moved on to 12 Eynon Estate with my girlfriend Rosie, where obviously Colin was already living. Now it became obvious straight away that he had middle-class aspirations, because whereas most people were living somewhere in a terrace in a two-bedroom house, because that's what basically most of the estate was, he was living in a semi-detached house, and I think it had 3 bedrooms. Anyway, one day he invited Rosie and myself round, and it turned out that these middle-class aspirations were being reinforced with what for those times was quite a large colour TV set. So I decided that Rosie and I couldn't afford a TV set, so this was quite convenient, because we got into the habit of going round there in the evenings, maybe watching the news and then watching something on telly. So it's very good of him really, yeah, especially since I didn't pay him anything for it. Anyway, Rosie and I met because we both played hockey. But Rosie was also very interested in soccer. Now you can see where this is going. Quite often the evening degenerated into Colin and Rosie having in-depth discussions about who was playing for who, what the result should have been, and all that. God, it was boring. So, on Saturday evenings, the 4 of us got into the habit of walking down to Park Bottom, to the pub there, and imbibing a few and eating a few packets of, I don't know whether hedgehog crisps had actually been invented then, but sort of beef flavoured crisps. Anyway, I think the landlord's name was George. Not that that's got anything to do with this story. But the good thing about the pub was that often on a Saturday night they'd have some sort of entertainment there. And some of the guys were really good. There was a guy called Steve Leslie, did his own backing tapes, sounded like a complete band. On the other hand, some of the other acts weren't quite up to that. And we found that as the beer went down, so did the quality of the entertainment in our view, and we'd have discussions about this. We didn't call anything out and didn't hurl abuse at the offending musicians, just that, anyway, that came back to bite us on the bum, because somebody decided that we should put our money where our mouth is, whatever, and entered us for a talent competition at the Penventon Hotel in Redruth. Trouble was, there was only 2 weeks to prepare. Now, I don't think Colin and I had ever actually sort of got down and sung anything together. So there was a problem there, and I must admit it didn't go too well at the start. However, we got there in the end. We put together 3 songs because we reckoned that would be, I think we were allowed 10 minutes anyway. So we put that together. We were going to start with Get Back, do Streets of London to show our gentler side and versatility. And I can't remember what the last one was. It probably was a rocky number. But then we came up with this bizarre idea that Colin would stand there with the microphone, impersonate a trumpet and go, and then I'd start on the guitar and we'd do it back. Well, it did grab their attention, probably for all the wrong reasons. So we did our 3 songs, watched the other acts, and bugger me, we won it. We got presented with a cheque for £40, which was a hell of a lot of money in 1976. And we thought, oh, 10 minutes work, that's not bad money. Anyway, one of the judges was an agent, so-called agent. So he took our details and started getting us bookings. So that's how the whole thing started. It was a bloody joke. Now, there was something ironic about that picture of us getting the cheque. As most people will know, Colin was totally opposed to school uniforms. Yet there we were, both in denim shirts and jeans. So we'd invented our own uniform. And actually, over the course of the 14 years playing together, I nearly said playing with each other, but that probably is not in bad taste. It's terrible. Over the course of the 14 years, we actually had 4 uniforms, because we started off with the denim for the sleazy pubs and working men's clubs. When we started getting better bookings, we had to have something smarter. And and then when Derek came along, it was the same thing. One for Cubs, we're not onto Scouts. One for plubs, see, I haven't been drinking, honestly. Plubs and blah, well, so 4 uniforms. Now, in the early days, I soon found out that these were 2 essential items that we had to carry with us: solder and a soldering iron. And the reason for that? Those bloody clogs. Because Colin couldn't feel anything under his feet, and so, you know, the microphone leads are fairly thin and not very robust, so you get him standing on it with a clog, it's quite likely to crush the cable or something worse. And there was one time when we were doing a pub in Penryn, and we had to stop 4 times for me to solder the lead back into the microphone again. Yeah, oh dear. Didn't charge him extra for that either. Wednesday the 6th of August 1977. No, I haven't got a photographic memory, I Googled it. Now, we got a gig for that date, and the gig was special for two reasons. First of all, it was booked for St Maur's Castle. I kid you not, yes, we were going to do a castle. Alright, it wasn't Slane Castle in Ireland, where they have the likes of U2 and Bryan Adams and all the rest of it, big concerts, but it was our castle, yes. And it was a stunning August day. The second reason was, and really, this is a prime example of money talking, because this was part of Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee celebrations. Yes, so money must have been talking there for Colin to actually have accepted it. So anyway, we rock up into the castle. First thing I do is get offside with the lady that's organising it, because she appeared at the castle gate, and I said, gosh, you're looking frazzled. And she said, I've just finished putting on my makeup. So I let Colin take over from that point. Sweet talk to him. Anyway, we had to do, while they were having their meal, we were behind a kind of minstrel screen in the lower. It was not quite a dungeon, but it was fairly low. And while we were doing that, what we hadn't realised was, it was an early evening meal, the Royal Yacht Britannia had actually been in Falmouth, and that started steaming or dieseling or whatever it did out of the harbour, and there was somebody on the castle roof with an Aldis lamp, and he click 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 hit to the Britannia. They click 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 clicked back, and then a few minutes later a messenger turned up with a little note which was the message from Britannia, and asked Colin to read it out. Now, I've hardly ever seen him stumped for words, but that was one particular occasion where you could see the cogs were. Anyway, he read the message out and we carried on with the show. Then, for the second part of the show, we had to take all the gear up to a room at the top of the castle. Now, if you know anything about castles, you know that the staircases, are spiral, and they're also designed so that when attackers coming up, they spiral clockwise, so the attackers can't use their sword arm, whereas the ones up the steps can actually sweep round. Well, that made it very difficult because, you know, you tend to carry things in your right hand, and with those wedge-shaped steps, there's not a lot to stand on. So carting it up and then carting it down. Anyway, it must have, as I say, it must have been good money because we actually ended up doing it, and that's where why we got this second got to look good uniform. Now, some of you may know, southwest of Falmouth in Cornwall, obviously, there are a couple of places. One is called Gweek, spelled G-W-E-E-K, and the other one's called Constantine. And once in a while we get gigs either in one or the other. Now, whenever we did, we would take, well, we would take a thick black felt tip pen, and if you go from Camborne to Falmouth and then start looking for Gweek and Constantine, you get the signpost with Constantine at the top and then Gweek underneath. And so the felt tip pen, when we came across a signpost like that, we'd stop, I'd get out, over the top of Gweek I would write the word king, and over the top of Constantine I'd write Isa. So the thing read, King Constantine is a Gweek. Now, some of you might have to actually brush up on your European history of the 60s and 70s, but then it will make sense. But King Constantine is a Gweek. Trouble is, with those road signs, they've thought of this, the stuff hardly ever sticks. One time we got a gig up all the way up in northeast Cornwall. I think it was almost as far as Plymouth, and it was significant because Ralph McTell, Streets of London guy, lived somewhere in that particular village. And talk about blooming coincidence. We were daft enough to perform Streets of London in his local pub, and we're halfway through it and he walks in. Now, he doesn't walk right into the pub, he stops at the door, listens till we've finished, sort of goes like that to us, and then walks out again. So at least we actually didn't get sued or charged for singing the song, but singing at his own pub, yeah. Things like that used to happen quite a lot. No, they didn't really. Now, one of Colin's great character traits, I think, was optimism. Optimism, yeah, and that played out many times when we were perhaps doing a small fishing village. For instance, we did Foy once. We actually did an open air gig in front of a pub down on the quay at Foy. But you know, if you know these little villages, narrow streets, all the rest of it, and without fail we would get there would always be a parking place near the venue. Now whenever I used to go sort of places like that, never find a parking place, but Colin said, no, that'll be alright, we'll find something, and we inevitably did. Maybe I should have said, oh, we'll never win £1,000,000, and he would have said, yeah, it's alright, we're going to do that, and we would have. Damn. If we were doing northwest Cornwall, inevitably we would have to go through Wadebridge, and I mean, we, as I say, we used to go far and wide in the early days, just to get the experience. And quite often, you know, after a gig, the journey would become a bit tedious, and we just came up with this expression. One of us, I think Colin, one night he said, oh shit, we must have gone through Wadebridge by now, and we hadn't. So that became a bit of a watchword. Didn't matter whether we were coming from Penzance, well, not Penzance, but Land's End, somewhere like that. You know, getting a bit tedious. Oh, we must have gone through Wadebridge by now. Remember, we were coming back one time, and we talked to each other in the car, and I don't know whether they'd actually got Cookie at the time, a little black Labrador thingy, but the conversation got round to dogs, and he said to me, if you could have any dog you wanted, what would you have? And I said, I'd have an Irish Wolfhound. Now there are reasons for that, which I won't bore you with here, but yeah, no, I was dead set on an Irish Wolfhound. And so so I explained to him why I wanted it. He said, well, what would you call it? Now, he must have been pretty tired then, because he didn't see where the conversation was going. Because I said to him, I think I'd call it Nad. And he said, what, Ned? No, I said Nad. He said, why would you do a thing like that? So I said, well, in the summer, I could go take him down onto the beach and throw a ball for him in front of all the emmets, the tourists, and yell out at the top of my voice, go Dad! And so when I did eventually get a wolfhound, that's what I called him, Nad. The biggest joke in Cornwall, that's what I called him. But it was funny because Colin would never let it go. We'd get home at night in the evening, get the gear in, and he'd be there patting the dog and coming up with sentences like, I know you don't want me to go, Nad, but I really do have to go, Nad. And he'd chortle away to himself. Yeah, sometimes wish that maybe I hadn't started the whole thing in the first place, but there you go. Well, that's the end of this little tribute. What you've heard has been a fraction of what I scribbled down when I first came to put this video together. Who knows, the rest of it may get aired one day. For instance, we haven't talked about the police incident involving Constable Sergeant. Yeah, that was his real name. He'll never make Sergeant Sergeant, will he? Or Inspector Sergeant. Then of course there's the so-called humour that we inflicted on the punters. Immortal lines like, have you met the barmaid? They call her Bubbles because she never wipes her nose. Anyway, Colin was multi-talented, multifaceted and probably multivitamined. In the 14 years together that we had in the band, sometimes under very stressful and trying circumstances, I don't think we ever said a cross word to each other, let alone had a major falling out. Sometimes our tastes in music were poles apart, but we never came close to splitting up because of musical differences. We always managed to find middle ground. Now, I, like a lot of you, will never forget the bloke. Colin, thanks for the many memories, mate, for the wonderful adventures we had together, and for being a very significant part of my life. And I really hope they put a whole pile of fireworks in the box with you, along with your clogs.